The war between Earth and the Valari had been going on for 3 years. It was a terrible war. Millions had died on both sides. Cities had burned. Planets had fallen. And there was no end in sight. David Park was a soldier. He was 28 years old, quiet, and did not talk much. He worked as a combat medic, which meant he saved lives instead of taking them. He had joined the military because he wanted to help people. But this war had shown him things that gave him nightmares. On a cold morning, David and his squad received orders. A Valari ship had crashed on a frozen moon called Kestrel 7. Command wanted them to check the wreckage. Maybe they would find something useful. Maybe they would find survivors to capture. The squad was small. Just 8 soldiers, led by Captain Lisa Cole. She was a tough woman with short hair and sharp eyes. She had been fighting since the war started. She had seen too much death, but she kept going because someone had to lead. Their transport landed 2 miles from the crash site. The moon was covered in ice and snow. The wind was so cold that it hurt to breathe. David pulled his jacket tighter and followed the others. They walked for an hour before they saw the smoke. The Valari ship was broken in half. It had hit the ground hard and scattered pieces across the frozen land. Fire still burned in some parts. The metal was twisted and black. "Stay sharp," Captain Cole said. "Could be survivors." The squad moved carefully. They checked every body they found. All dead. The Valari looked almost human, but their skin was silver and their eyes were large and violet. They were tall and thin. Even in death, they looked proud. David counted 12 bodies. Soldiers, all of them. They had died from the crash or from the cold that came after. He felt nothing at first. These were the enemy. They had killed his friends. But then he saw something that made him stop dead in the corner of the main cabin. Hidden under a pile of blankets, something moved. David raised his hand to signal the others. He moved closer, his heart beating fast. He pushed the blankets aside and found her. She was a child. A little Valari girl, maybe 6 years old. Her silver skin was pale from the cold. Her violet eyes were wide with fear. She was shaking so hard that David could hear her teeth clicking together. For a moment, neither of them moved. The girl stared at David. David stared back. He had seen many things in this war, but he had never seen a Valari child before. He'd almost forgotten that they had children and all. "Hey," David said softly. "It's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The girl did not understand his words, but something in his voice made her stop shaking. Just a little. The other soldiers gathered around. When they saw the child, their faces changed. Some looked surprised. Some looked angry. One soldier, a big man named Pete, raised his rifle. "What do we do with it?" Pete asked. "She," David said. "Not it. She." "Whatever. She's the enemy. Her people have killed thousands of us." Captain Cole pushed through the group. She looked at the child for a long moment. Her face showed nothing. "We take her back to base," she said. "Command will want to see this." "Could be useful." "Useful how?" Another soldier asked. "Prisoner exchange. Information. I don't know. That's not our job to decide." Pete did not lower his rifle. "Maybe we should just end it here. One less of them to worry about." David moved before he could think. He stepped between Pete and the child, blocking the rifle with his body. "No," David said. The air became very still. Pete's eyes went hard. "Move, Park. She's a kid. She's the enemy. She's 6 years old. Look at her." David's voice was steady, but his hands were shaking. "She's scared and alone. Her people are dead. What kind of threat is she?" Pete took a step forward. "Their kind bombed New Tokyo, killed 50,000 people in one day. My sister was there." "And that's horrible," David said. I'm sorry about your sister, but this child didn't do that. She didn't choose this war. She's just a kid who's scared and cold and wants to go home." The silence stretched on. Everyone watched. Nobody moved. Then Captain Cole spoke. "Lower your weapon, Pete." Pete's jaw tightened. "Captain, that's an order." Slowly, Pete lowered his rifle. He glared at David with pure hate, but he stepped back. Captain Cole walked over to the child. She knelt down so they were at the same level. The girl pressed herself against the wall, trembling. "Can you walk?" Cole asked. The girl did not answer. She probably did not understand. "David," Cole said, "you seem to have a way with her. She's your responsibility now. Keep her alive until we get back to base." David nodded. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around the small silver body. The girl flinched at first, but when she felt the warmth, she relaxed a little. "It's okay," David said again. "You're safe now." He picked her up carefully. She was very light, like she was made of paper. She looked up at him with those big violet eyes, and David saw something that made his heart ache. She was looking at him like he was the only person in the universe who might not hurt her. As they walked back to the transport, David noticed something on the girl's clothing. A small symbol stitched in gold thread. It looked like a crown with 3 stars above it. He had seen that symbol before. In the briefings, in the intelligence reports, it was the royal sigil of the Valari Empire, the mark of the ruling family. David's blood went cold. This was not just any child. This was someone important. Very important. He looked at the girl again. She had closed her eyes and pressed her face against his chest. She was exhausted, scared, just a child who wanted to feel safe. David made a decision in that moment. He did not know what would happen when they got back to base. He did not know what command would do with her. But he knew one thing for certain. He would protect this child. No matter what, the transport lifted off and flew through the gray sky. Below them, the crashed ship grew smaller and smaller until it was just a black spot on the white ice. Somewhere in the stars, the child's mother was searching for her. The most powerful woman in the Valari Empire. The one they called the Winter Blade. And she would burn entire worlds to get her daughter back. But David did not know that yet. All he knew was that he was holding a small, scared child who had stopped shaking because she felt safe in his arms. And that was enough. For now, that was enough. On the other side of the star system, Empress Nera sat on her throne and listened to the worst news of her life. "The ship is destroyed, my Empress," Commander Voss said. He was a tall warrior with scars across his face. He had served the royal family for 30 years. He had never seen Nera look so afraid. "We found it on Kestrel 7. There were no survivors." Nera's hands gripped the arms of her throne so hard that the metal bent under her fingers. Her heart was breaking, but her face showed nothing. A queen could not show weakness. Not even now. "My daughter," she said. "Where is my daughter?" "We do not know." Her body was not among the dead. The humans arrived before our rescue team. They may have taken her. Nera stood up. She was tall and beautiful, with silver skin that seemed to glow in the light. Her violet eyes were cold as ice. 1 year ago, she had lost her husband in battle. Tall was all she had left. Her only child. Her only reason to keep living. "Find her," Nera said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone in the room felt the power behind it. "Send every ship we have. Search every moon, every planet, every station. Find my daughter and bring her home." Commander Voss bowed. "And the humans who took her?" Nera's eyes grew even colder. "Kill them. Kill them all." Far away, David did not know that an entire fleet was coming for him. He was sitting in a small room at the human base, watching the Valari child sleep. They had given her a bed in the corner of the medical bay. David had asked for blankets and warm food. The doctors had checked her and said she was not hurt, just scared and tired. David was relieved that he had learned her name on the transport. She had pointed to herself and said one word, Tal. It was a simple name, a child's name. It made her seem more real somehow. Captain Cole came to see him that night. She stood in the doorway and watched Tal sleep. Command is excited, she said. That symbol on her clothes? It's the royal mark. This kid is someone important. She's a child, David said. Not a bargaining chip. She's both. Cole's voice was not cruel, just tired. This war has been going on for 3 years. We're losing. If this girl can help end it, then we have to use her. David wanted to argue, but he knew Cole was right. In war, everything became a weapon. Even children. What will they do with her? David asked. I don't know yet, but I have a feeling you won't like it. She left without saying anything else. David sat in the dark and listened to Tal breathe. She made small sounds in her sleep, like she was having bad dreams. David reached out and touched her hand. She stopped making the sounds. Over the next 3 days, something strange happened. Tal became attached to David. She would not let anyone else come near her. When the doctors tried to examine her, she screamed and hid behind David's legs. When soldiers walked past, she grabbed David's hand and held on tight. But with David, she was different. She smiled at him. She tried to teach him words in her language. She laughed when he said them wrong. She followed him everywhere, like a small silver shadow. David found himself caring about her more and more. He brought her extra food from the kitchen. He found a blanket that was soft and warm and gave it to her. He sat with her when she had nightmares and told her stories even though she could not understand them. One night, Tal looked up at him with her big violet eyes. Friend? She said. It was the first human word she had learned. David felt his heart crack open. Yeah, he said. Friend. On the 4th day, the orders came. Captain Cole found David in the medical bay. Her face was serious, and David knew right away that something was wrong. They're moving her, Cole said. Tomorrow morning. A team from military intelligence is coming to take her to a black site. A black site? David felt cold. Why? She's just a child. She's the daughter of their empress. She knows things. She might have heard things. Intelligence wants to question her. Question her? She's 6 years old. Cole held up her hand. I know. I told them the same thing. They don't care. This war has made monsters out of all of us, David. You know that. David stood up. His hands were shaking. I won't let them take her. There's nothing you can do. This order comes from the top. From Earth itself. I don't care where it comes from. Cole looked at him for a long moment. Her eyes were sad. Be careful, David. Don't do something stupid. But David had already made up his mind. He had promised to protect Tal. He had looked into her eyes and called her a friend. He could not let them take her to be questioned, hurt, maybe killed. That night, he waited until the base was quiet. He packed a small bag with food, water, and medical supplies. He took a thermal jacket and 2 blankets. He found a map of the moon's surface and memorized the route to the old mining tunnels in the north. Then he went to get Tal. She was awake when he arrived. She looked at him with those big eyes, and it was like she knew something was about to happen. We have to go, David said softly. We have to leave now. Can you be very quiet for me? Tal nodded. She did not ask questions. She just held out her arms and let David pick her up. They moved through the base like ghosts. David knew the patrol schedules. He knew which doors were guarded and which were not. He had spent 3 years on this base. He knew every corner. The cold hit them like a wall when they stepped outside. David wrapped Tal in both blankets and held her close. She buried her face against his neck. "It's going to be okay," David whispered. "I promise. I'll keep you safe." They walked into the darkness. Behind them, the base lights glowed yellow in the distance. Ahead of them, there was only ice and snow and endless night. David knew what he had just done. He had become a traitor. He had abandoned his unit, stolen military property, and taken a valuable prisoner. If they caught him, they would execute him. But when he felt Tal's small arms around his neck, he knew he had made the right choice. Some things were more important than orders. Some things were more important than war. He was a soldier. He had been trained to fight and kill. But tonight, he had chosen something different. He had chosen to protect an innocent life. He had chosen to be human. The wind howled around them as they walked north. Somewhere in the stars above, Valari ships were coming. Somewhere behind them, human soldiers would soon realize he was gone. Both sides would hunt him now. Both sides would want him dead. But David kept walking, one foot in front of the other, holding the small silver child against his chest. Heading into the frozen unknown. He did not know if they would survive. He did not know what would happen next. All he knew was that right now, in this moment, he was doing the right thing, and that would have to be enough. The first night was the hardest. David walked for 6 hours through the snow before he found a cave to hide in. His legs were shaking from the cold. His lungs burned from breathing the frozen air. But Tal was warm in his arms, and that was what mattered. The cave was small and dark, but it protected them from the wind. David set Tal down and wrapped her in the blankets. He used his own body to block the entrance, keeping his warmth inside. "Hungry," Tal said. It was another word David had taught her. He opened his pack and gave her a food bar. She ate it slowly, watching him with those big violet eyes. David ate nothing. They had limited supplies. Tal needed them more than he did. That night, Tal had a nightmare. She cried out and reached for David in the dark. He held her close and hummed a song his mother used to sing when he was small. Tal did not understand the words, but the sound calmed her. She fell back asleep with her head on his chest. David did not sleep at all. By morning, the hunt had begun. David could hear ships flying overhead, searching the frozen landscape. Some were human. Some were Valari. Both sides wanted to find them, and neither side would show mercy. He moved only at night, when the darkness gave them cover. During the day, they hid in caves or under rock formations. David taught Tal how to be silent, how to hold her breath when ships passed overhead. She learned fast. She was smart. This little girl. Days passed. 3, 4, 5. Their food ran out on the 6th day. David gave the last piece to Tal and told her he was not hungry. She looked at him like she did not believe him, but she ate it anyway. The cold was getting worse. David's thermal jacket was old and damaged. Ice formed in his hair and on his eyebrows. His fingers turned blue, then white. He knew he was getting frostbite, but he did not tell Tal. He did not want to scare her. On the 7th night, the predators came. They were called ice wolves by the human soldiers. They were not really wolves, but they hunted like wolves. They were white as snow, with black eyes and teeth like knives. They could smell blood from miles away. David had been walking with Tal on his back when he heard the first howl. It was a cold sound, like death calling. He stopped and looked around. In the darkness, he saw eyes. Many eyes. Glowing in the night. "Don't move," he whispered to Tal. "Stay very still." The pack circled them slowly. There were 6 animals, each one bigger than a dog. They were hungry. They could smell that David was weak. The first one attacked without warning. It jumped at David's throat with its mouth open. David moved to the side and slashed with his combat knife. The blade cut across the animal's face, and it fell back with a cry. But the others were coming now. 2 more jumped at him at once. David stabbed one in the chest, but the other got past his guard. Its teeth sank into his arm, tearing through his jacket and his skin. David screamed and threw the animal off, but blood was pouring from the wound. Tal was screaming too. David! David! He had to protect her. He could not fall. He turned and put his body between Tal and the pack. Blood ran down his arm and dripped onto the snow. The remaining wolves circled, waiting for him to fall. David held his knife in front of him. His vision was getting dark around the edges. He had lost too much blood. His body was shutting down, but he did not move. He would not move. He would stand here until his heart stopped beating. The wolves seemed to sense something. They backed away slowly, then turned and ran into the night. David did not understand why until he heard the sound of engines. Overhead dot ships. Coming fast. He fell to his knees in the snow. He could not run anymore. He could not even stand. Tal was crying, pulling at his jacket, trying to make him get up. But David had nothing left. The ships landed all around them. They were Valari ships, sleek and silver in the moonlight. Soldiers poured out with weapons raised. They formed a circle around David and Tal, their guns pointed at his chest. One soldier stepped forward. He was tall, with scars on his face. Commander Voss. "Stay where you are, human," Voss said. His voice was cold with hate. "Step away from the child." David was kneeling in the snow, bleeding from a dozen wounds. His body was broken. His strength was gone. But when he heard those words, something woke up inside him. He pushed himself to his feet. It hurt more than anything he had ever felt, but he stood. He put his body in front of Tal and raised his empty hands. "No," David said. Voss stared at him. "What did you say?" "I said no. You're not taking her while pointing guns at her. She's scared. She's been scared for days. Lower your weapons." Voss laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think you can give orders? You're one human, barely alive. We have 50 warriors here. You have nothing." "I have a promise," David said. His voice was shaking, but his eyes were steady. "I promised I would protect her. I keep my promises. Then you will die keeping this one." Voss raised his weapon. His finger touched the trigger. David closed his eyes and waited for the end. But the shot never came. Instead, he felt small hands grab his leg. He looked down and saw Tal running out from behind him. She ran toward Commander Voss with tears streaming down her silver face. "No." She screamed in her own language. "Don't hurt him. He's my friend. He saved me." Voss froze. The other soldiers froze. Everyone stared at the little princess standing between them and the wounded human. "He's good," Tal said, still crying. "He gave me food. He kept me warm. He fought the monsters to protect me. Please don't hurt him, please." She turned and ran back to David. She grabbed his hand with both of hers and held on tight. She looked up at him with those big violet eyes, the same eyes that had looked at him with fear just 8 days ago. But now there was no fear in them. Only love. Only trust. Voss lowered his weapon slowly. He looked at David like he was seeing him for the first time. "You protected her," Voss said. "It was not a question. You protected the daughter of our empress. A human protected a Valari child." David's vision was going dark. His legs would not hold him much longer. But he managed to speak one more time. "She's just a kid," he said. "She deserves to be safe." Then he collapsed in the snow, and everything went black. The last thing he felt was Tal's small hand still holding his. She did not let go, even when he fell. She held on with all her strength and screamed for help. "Save him!" she cried. "Please save him!" And Commander Voss, who had killed 100 humans in battle, who had sworn to destroy every one of them, looked at the little princess crying over a dying enemy, and for the first time in his life, he did not know what to do. David woke up in a room full of light. For a moment, he thought he was dead. The light was warm and golden, not like the cold white of the frozen moon. Maybe this was heaven. Maybe he had finally found peace. And the pain hit him, and he knew he was still alive. His whole body hurt. His arm was wrapped in strange silver bandages. His chest was covered in some kind of healing gel that smelled like flowers. He tried to sit up, but his muscles screamed in protest. "Do not move," a voice said. "You are badly hurt. The medicine needs time to work." David turned his head and saw a Valari woman standing beside his bed. She wore white robes and had kind eyes. "A doctor, maybe. Where am I?" David asked. His voice was rough, like he had not used it in days. "You are on the flagship of the Valari fleet. You have been sleeping for 2 days. We almost lost you 3 times, but you are strong. You kept fighting." David tried to remember what had happened. The wolves, the blood, the soldiers with their guns. And Tal. Where was Tal? "The girl," David said. "The child. Is she safe?" The doctor smiled. "She is safe. She has barely left your side since we brought you here. She only left because her mother arrived." Her mother? Before the doctor could answer, the door opened, and David saw her for the first time. Empress Nera was the most beautiful and frightening person David had ever seen. She was tall, with silver skin that seemed to glow from within. Her violet eyes were deep and ancient, like they had seen 1,000 wars. She wore black armor with gold markings, and a crown of twisted silver sat on her head. Behind her came Commander Vos and several guards. And holding the Empress's hand was little Tal Dot. When Tal saw that David was awake, her face lit up like the sun. She pulled away from her mother and ran to his bed. "David!" she cried. "You woke up!" "I was so scared. I thought you were going to die." She climbed onto the bed carefully, trying not to hurt him, and wrapped her small arms around his neck. David held her with his good arm and felt tears in his eyes. "I'm okay," he whispered. "I told you I'd protect you, didn't I?" Tal nodded against his chest. "You kept your promise." Empress Nera watched this scene without moving. Her face showed nothing, but her eyes were full of emotions that David could not read. She walked slowly toward the bed, her footsteps silent on the metal floor. David felt his heart beat faster. This was the enemy. This was the woman whose armies had killed millions of his people. He should be afraid of her. He should hate her. But when he looked at her face, all he saw was a mother who had almost lost her child. "You are the human who saved my daughter," Nera said. Her voice was deep and musical, like a song made of ice. David nodded. He did not trust himself to speak. "Commander Voss has told me everything. You took her from your own people. You became a traitor to protect her. You walked through ice and snow for 7 days. You fought predators with your bare hands. You stood against my soldiers when you could barely stand at all." She paused and looked at Tal, who was still holding on to David like she would never let go. "Why?" Nera asked. "Why did you do this? She is your enemy. Her people have killed your people. Why did you risk everything for her?" David looked at Tal, then back at the Empress. He thought about the question for a long moment. "Because she's a child," he said finally. "Because she was scared and alone. Because when I looked at her, I didn't see an enemy. I just saw a little girl who needed help." Nera's eyes widened slightly. She had expected many answers, but not this one. In her culture, weakness was hidden. Kindness was dangerous. Enemies were destroyed without mercy, but this human had shown mercy. This human had been kind, and he had almost died for it. "Among my people," Nera said slowly, There is an ancient law. When a warrior saves the life of one's blood, a debt is created. A debt that cannot be repaid with money or words. It can only be honored through the claiming. David did not understand. The claiming? Nira nodded. When you saved my daughter, you bound yourself to my bloodline. By the old laws, you are no longer a stranger. You are no longer an enemy. You become part of my house. My family. She stepped closer to the bed. The guard shifted nervously, but Nira raised her hand to stop them. I am offering you the claiming human. If you accept, you will belong to my house. My people will protect you as their own. My home will be your home. Any who wish to harm, you will have to answer to me. David's mind was spinning. He looked at Tal, who was smiling up at him with hope in her eyes. You'll stay with us? Tal asked. Forever? David did not know what to say. An hour ago, he was dying in the snow. Now the empress of his enemy was offering him a place in her family. It was too much to understand. What about my people? David asked. What about Earth? Nira's face grew sad. Your people have called you a traitor. They want you dead. You cannot go back to them. But here, with us, you can have a new life. A new family. David thought about Earth. He thought about his squad, his captain, the war he had fought for 3 years. He thought about the faces of friends he had lost and the blood he had seen dot, and then he thought about Tal, her smile, her laugh, the way she held his hand when she was scared, the way she had screamed for them to save him, even though he was supposed to be her enemy. Maybe home was not a place. Maybe home was the people who loved you. Okay, David said quietly. I accept. Nira nodded. She reached out and placed her hand on David's chest, right over his heart. Her hand was warm, not cold like he expected. Then by the ancient laws of my people, I claim you, she said. Her voice was formal, powerful. From this day forward, you are David of House Nira. You are my family. Your enemies are my enemies. Your life is bound to mine. She removed her hand and stepped back. David felt something change inside him. Like a door had opened somewhere deep in his soul, Tal was crying and smiling at the same time. She hugged David tight and laughed. You're staying, she said. You're really staying. Even Commander Voss looked moved. He bowed his head slightly to David, a sign of respect among the Valari. David looked around at these strange silver people who had been his enemies just days ago. He looked at Tal, who was glowing with happiness. He looked at Nira, whose cold eyes had grown warm for just a moment. He did not know what the future would bring. He did not know if the war would ever end. But for the first time in 3 years, David Park felt something he had almost forgotten. He felt like he was home. The news spread like fire through both civilizations. A human soldier had been claimed by the Valari Empress, the first outsider in their history to join the royal bloodline. It was impossible. It was madness. It was the biggest story since the war began. On Earth, people did not know what to think. Some called David a traitor who deserved death. Some called him a hero who had done something brave. News programs talked about him every day. His face was everywhere. Among the Valari, the reaction was just as mixed. Many warriors were angry. How could a human, an enemy, become part of the royal house? It was against tradition. It was against nature. But others saw something different. They saw a human who had risked everything to save a Valari child. Maybe humans were not all monsters after all. David spent his first months learning. He learned the Valari language, their customs, their history. He learned that they were not so different from humans. They loved their families. They laughed at jokes. They cried at sad stories. They were people, just like him. Tal became his shadow. She followed him everywhere, teaching him new words, showing him her favorite places in the palace. She called him her brother, even though they looked nothing alike. She did not care. She had chosen him, and that was enough. Empress Nera watched David carefully. She was not sure what to think of this strange human who had saved her daughter. He was quiet and gentle, not like the humans she had fought in battle. He did not speak of war with pride. When she asked him about the battles he had fought, his eyes grew sad. "I didn't want to fight," David told her one evening. They were sitting in the palace garden, watching Tal play with the flowers. "I joined as a medic because I wanted to save lives, not take them. But in war, sometimes you don't get to choose." Nera nodded slowly. "I understand. I did not choose this war either. It began before I became empress. But I had to lead my people through it. I had to be strong, even when I wanted to stop." "Do you ever think about peace?" David asked. Nira was quiet for a long moment. "I think about it every day. I think about a world where Tal can grow up without fear, where children on both sides can play without worrying about bombs falling from the sky. Maybe we can make that world," David said. Nira looked at him with surprise. "How? I don't know yet. But I was your enemy, and now I'm sitting here talking to you like a friend. If that can happen, maybe anything can happen." It was a small seed, but it began to grow. Over the next few months, Nera found herself asking David for his thoughts on many things. He had a way of seeing problems that was different from her advisors. He was not afraid to speak the truth, even when it was hard to hear. "Your generals want to attack the human colony on Mars," David said one day during a war council. Nera had invited him to listen, though the generals were not happy about it. "It would be a victory, yes. But the colony has 3 million civilians. If you attack, you will kill them all." General Vox slammed his fist on the table. "They are the enemy. Their deaths will bring us closer to winning, will it?" David asked calmly. "Or will it make the humans hate you more? Will it make them fight harder? Will it create a wound that can never heal?" The room was silent. No one had ever spoken to the generals like this. Nera thought about David's words. She thought about Tal and all the children who had lost their parents in this war. She thought about the hatred that had poisoned both sides for 3 long years. "Cancel the attack," she said finally. General Vox looked like he had been slapped. "My Empress," I said, "cancel it." "David is right. We will not win this war by becoming monsters. There has to be another way." That night, Nera sent a secret message to Earth. She asked if they would be willing to talk about peace. She expected them to refuse. She expected them to laugh at her, but they did not laugh. They agreed to meet. The peace talks began 6 months later on a neutral space station. Nera led the Valari delegation. David stood beside her, the only human in her group. On the other side sat Earth's leaders, staring at David with confusion and anger. "You bring a traitor to peace talks?" One of the Earth leaders asked. "I'd bring a member of my house," Nera said calmly. "He is not your traitor. He is my family. And he is proof that our 2 peoples can live together in peace." The talks were hard. There were many arguments, many moments when both sides wanted to walk away. But slowly, carefully, they began to find common ground. David helped translate, not just words, but meanings. He helped both sides understand each other. It took a full year to reach an agreement. A full year of talking, fighting, and trying again. But finally, on a cold morning in space, the leaders of both worlds signed a peace treaty. The war was over. David watched the signing from the back of the room. Tal was holding his hand, squeezing it tight with excitement. Nera stood at the front, her face calm, but her eyes bright with hope. "We did it," Tal whispered. "We really did it." David nodded, but he could not speak. His throat was too tight with emotion. 3 years of war, millions of deaths, and now it was finally ending. He had never thought he would live to see this day. After the ceremony, Mira found him standing alone by a window, looking out at the stars. "You made this possible," she said. "You know that, don't you?" David shook his head. "I didn't do anything. I just protected a child. And that child changed me. She showed me that you were different, that humans could be kind. Without you, I would have kept fighting. I would have let my hate consume me. You saved more than my daughter, David. You saved my soul." David looked at her and saw tears in her eyes. He had never seen her cry before. He reached out and took her hand. "We saved each other," he said. Years later, historians would write books about the war and how it ended. They would talk about treaties and politics and military strategies. But the ones who really understood would tell a different story. They would tell the story of a frozen moon and a crashed ship, a human soldier and an alien child, a moment when one person chose to be kind instead of cruel. That was the moment that changed everything. Not the battles or the victories or the defeats. Just a simple choice. A choice to protect instead of harm. A choice to love instead of hate. That was what it meant to be human. Not the killing, not the war, but the kindness, the hope, the stubborn refusal to give up on each other. And somewhere in the palace, Tal would tell her own children about her human brother, about how he carried her through the snow, about how he stood in front of guns to keep her safe, about how he taught the galaxy that the strongest thing a person can do is not to fight, but to love. And her children would look up at the stars and dream of a future without war, not because of him, because of one human who refused to let go.